Space is the breath of art. The magician says this of architecture Frank Lloyd Wright. The Falling Water is magically written or designed by Frank Lloyd Wright's great magician. His magic was his designing of houses as an architect. He always amazed people through this. When considering the best all-time work of American architecture after all these years also, the glory of Falling Water never fails. This is widely recognized as Frank Lloyd Wright's crowning achievement and the symbol on the landscape of world architecture. Frequently referenced in current interior design, it is one of many Frank Lloyd Wright houses constructed throughout his prolific career. A visit to Frank Lloyd Wright's Falling Water would not be complete without a stop in Pittsburgh. The main house was constructed between 1936 and 1938, and the guest house was completed in 1939. Since then, 4.5 million people have visited Falling Water, and we are now virtually one of them. When you come to Falling Water, you realize what an extraordinary gift it must have been to be one of the guests to witness something that we would only read in novels because it stands on 5,000 acres of bare-run natural preserve. It's humid, lush, and lovely, and the sound of the water is everywhere. Just getting the view of this house makes our eyes prettier. The interior of Falling Water has been designed to resemble nature. The inside of Falling Water was designed to resemble the surrounding forest. The 5,300 square foot home's walls and floors are made of local sandstone. The living room's heart is made of a rock outcropping, each bedroom has its terrace, and the home's cornerless windows face outward so that the visitors' views are not obstructed. Even the main level's floor has a glass hatchway that opens to expose a stairway leading down to the stream below. The legacy has also so many hardships. Let's check on to something like that. Frank Lloyd Wright, 1867 and 1959, is now regarded as one of history's greatest architects, but many critics thought he was finished when he was in his late 60s. Wright, having only completed a few projects in the previous decade, the Great Depression had reduced demand for new construction. And to add insult to injury, his younger peers thought his style was out of date. With Falling Water, Wright showed the world that he wasn't done yet, ushering in a last, successful phase of his career. Wright designed a few additional notable works near the end of his life, including the Monona Terrace Civic Center in Madison, Wisconsin, and the Guggenheim Museum in New York City. It wasn't just a house either. There are numerous rational and fascinating facts concerning the splendor. Falling Water exhibits Wright's organic architecture concept, which many of today's top architecture companies subscribe to, that art and nature should coexist, integrating and improving one another. The house, which sits atop a waterfall in Pennsylvania's Barron Nature Reserve with water pouring forth from it, merges in with and contrasts with its green surroundings, changing the interaction between human, architecture, and the environment. In the last few minutes, you have heard about the organic architecture, and here is something more for you about it. According to Edward Kaufman Jr., Wright's famed concept of organic architecture originates from his transcendentalist heritage, the idea that the human life is intertwined with nature. A granite protrusion above the living room floor was even incorporated into Wright's massive central hearth, further connecting the home to the land. Can you declare when your building is finished that the landscape is more lovely than it was before? Wright challenged his apprentices. Although Falling Water is an architectural marvel, it is not without problems. The skylights leak, the waterfall encourages mold development, and Kaufman dubbed Falling Water rising mildew. The builders didn't use enough reinforcing steel to hold the concrete skeleton on the first floor. Kaufman had his reservations about Wright's concept's technical practicality at first, so he recruited consulting engineers to look over his ideas. They determined that the rafters on the main floor needed to be reinforced, but Wright rejected this allegation and continued with the project. The home's first floor cantilever sagged over time due to gravity, and the foundation was reinforced in 2002 to prevent a future collapse. The stone floor and furniture on the first level had to be pulled out as part of the operation. Its striking exterior features angular concrete slabs in a natural ochre tone, a color that can still be found happily in beige living rooms, cantilevered jagged local sandstone that blends in with the surrounding rock formations, windows edged in earth-colored steel, and glass walls that further blend indoor and out. Internally, the house has narrow corridors and low-ceilinged rooms to direct the sight and body outdoors. Despite Wright's suggestion that the home's concrete surfaces be coated in gold leaf, the house was only painted in two colors, the pale ochre indicated above and the burgundy for the steel. Interior, which is a wonder, that's the next one. Fallingwater was built as a weekend home for Wright's friend Edgar Kaufman and his family, who owned a well-known local department store with impeccable taste and flair. Kaufman had hoped for the building to be built on the opposite side of the waterfall, with a view of the cascading water, and was believed to be furious at the idea to make on the cascade's edge. Wright stated that he wanted the Kaufmans to live with the waterfall as an integral part of their lives, and the family unsurprisingly embraced the design, vacationing in the house until 1963, when it was donated to the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy, which now operates it as a museum with over 5 million visitors. Fallingwater is a 20th century architectural masterpiece that questions the connection between the natural and the artificial worlds. It is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a National Historic Landmark, and a Commonwealth of Pennsylvania treasure. As long as social distance norms allow, it is open to the public and is filled with mid-century contemporary furnishings, coupled with some Eastern influences. Fallingwater is divided into two sections: the main house, 1,600 square meters, and the guest house, 500 square meters. The main house's fireplace is a focal point, carved out by a rock and allowing the waterfall to flow right into the living room. The three-story house has 4 bedrooms on the first and second floors and a small kitchen. It was never meant to be a kitchen, so think of it as an ideal spot for drinks, parties, and a home bar instead. There's also a pool, which appears a touch cool in the photos, but just imagine it in the summer. This private area is built into the side of the house and hangs off the edge of the slope, staring out into the forest. We have already discussed about a lot of amazing things about Fallingwater, but do you have any idea regarding how much it will cost today? Now we have to take a look at that. Today, Fallingwater would be worth thousands of dollars. Kaufman's initial budget for Fallingwater was between $20,000 and $30,000, but it ended up costing the family $155,000, including a guest house. This included $8,000 in architect expenses and $4,500 in the walnut furniture installation. After adjusting for inflation, that sum now amounts to more over $2.5 million. Inspiration from Fallingwater, Ayn Rand's groundbreaking 1943 novel The Fountainhead is said to have been inspired by both Frank Lloyd Wright and Fallingwater. Its protagonist, iconoclastic architect Howard Rourke, looks eerily like Wright, and several of the homes Rourke constructs for customers are reminiscent of Fallingwater. Toker even speculates that the book's title, which Rand changed from Secondhand Lives to The Fountainhead, is a nod to Fallingwater because both names are 12 characters long, starting with the letter F. Conjure images of falling water. Today we took a virtual trip, and we are sure that you people are so excited to take a real trip to this house. Please let us know your opinions through the comment section. We would be overwhelmed with your response.